The sun hung low, casting long shadows across my solar shed as I tightened a bolt on the inverter panel. My 17-acre sanctuary, tucked high on a ridge with national forest on two sides and untamed land on the others, was my fortress of freedom. No paved roads, no water lines, no trace of the suburban sprawl I'd left behind. But that afternoon, as I wiped sweat from my brow, I spotted a crisp envelope protruding from the rusty mailbox at the end of my gravel drive. It was the only relic of civilization on my homestead, and I hadn't bothered checking it in days. Most news worth knowing came through email or whispers from neighbors miles down the mountain trail. The envelope bore an embossed seal and a sterile logo, Pine Valley Community Association. I'd heard the name once, maybe twice, from a passing hiker, tied to the cookie-cutter subdivision creeping up the valley below. Leaning against my ATV, I tore it open, sipping lukewarm coffee from a thermos. The letter inside hit like a sucker punch, sharp, legalistic, and dripping with condescension. It claimed my parcel, number 47C821, fell under Pine Valley's jurisdiction. They demanded I vacate within 30 days or sign a compliance agreement surrendering my land to their HOA governance. I read it twice, then laughed, the sound echoing off the pines. This had to be a joke. I'd bought this land 5 years ago with cash and a dream to live off-grid, free from red tape. My cabin, my solar rig, my greenhouse, they were mine, not some HOA's to claim. I tossed the letter onto the ATV seat and rumbled up to my cabin, half convinced it was a clerical error. But a knot in my gut told me otherwise. 2 days later, that knot tightened. A sleek black SUV rolled up my private trail uninvited, tires grinding gravel like they owned the place. A woman in sharp heels and a man with a clipboard and a tucked-in polo shirt stepped out. I met them halfway down the path, my shotgun slung across my back, not a threat, just habit from years of living remote. "You're on private property," I said, calm but firm. "Mr. Carter?" the woman asked, her smile thin as a blade. "I'm Evelyn Reed, president of Pine Valley HOA. This is Greg, our compliance officer. We're here to assess your property for integration." Integration. The word landed like a slap. She went on, explaining how their subdivision had expanded to include my parcel, claiming legal authority over my land. They wanted my solar panels gone, my greenhouse razed, my chickens banned. They wanted my life to fit their manicured vision of stucco houses and HOA fees. I stood there, jaw tight, as Evelyn's smile widened, like she was schooling a stubborn kid. "We prefer voluntary compliance, Mr. Carter, but will escalate if necessary." I didn't raise my voice. I just listened, but something inside me turned to ice. These people thought they could swallow my world whole. I wasn't about to let that happen. The next week was a blur. I called my lawyer, Tom Hargrove, a grizzled real estate attorney who lived even deeper in the woods than I did. Tom, a former Marine with a hatred for bureaucracy that rivaled mine, read the HOA's letter and chuckled. "This'll be a fight worth having." He dug into county records and found the truth. Pine Valley's developers had been gobbling up land, lobbying officials, and reclassifying parcels for residential use. In their rush to expand, they'd mislabeled my land as undeveloped county property, oblivious to the fact that I'd been living here, with title deeds, permits, and tax receipts dating back to 1982, when the original homesteader built my cabin. Better yet, a conservation clause in the land sale exempted it from subdivision annexation. "They thought you were some squatter in a hunting shack," Tom said, sipping bourbon on my porch. "But your paper trail's thicker than their entire charter. We drafted a response polite, legal, ironclad, and mailed it certified. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't." A month later, my trail camera caught construction trucks creeping up the public access road near my land. Then, one morning, I found surveyor flags staked into the eastern slope, just beyond my property line. They were building an access road, inching closer. Evelyn called, her voice syrupy but laced with steel. "This isn't personal, Mr. Carter. The county's approved our plans. You're standing in the way of progress." I told her the county hadn't reviewed my rights yet, and they'd better start. Tom filed a cease and desist order and secured an emergency injunction, but Evelyn wasn't deterred. She sued, claiming I was illegally occupying land under Pine Valley's jurisdictional spirit. Tom nearly choked on his coffee when he read that. "Since when does property law care about spirit?" he roared. That's when I knew this wasn't about law, it was about power. The HOA didn't wait for a court date. They escalated, sending trucks daily to carve out a shared utilities corridor for future homeowners. I saw it for what it was, a slow-motion land grab. I fought back, documenting everything: drones, cameras, time-stamped photos. I planted no trespassing signs every 20 feet. When crews crossed my line, I called the sheriff, who backed off once I showed the conservation clause. But the pressure kept building. Rumors spread in town. I was a squatter, a meth cook, a paranoid recluse. Local vendors dropped my contracts. My roadside produce stand saw fewer customers. Evelyn was playing dirty, and it was working. I refused to fold. Instead, I invited the local news to my homestead. They filmed my solar setup, my garden, my chicken coop, my rainwater barrels. The segment aired that night. Local homesteader fights HOA to save off-grid dream. The tide began to turn. Emails flooded in from supporters across the state. Volunteers helped reinforce my fencing. A retired surveyor sent maps proving my land had never been part of any subdivision. Then came the knockout. A county official, fed up with Pine Valley's strong-arm tactics, leaked documents to Tom. One page showed the developers knew my land had a title holder when they drew their annexation map. They'd buried the detail to avoid redrawing their plans, a clear case of fraud. Tom's grin could have split stone. He filed a countersuit: property fraud, intentional misrepresentation, harassment, defamation. Now I was the one on offense. Court day arrived like a thunderstorm. The room brimmed with locals, reporters, and a few off-gridders who'd fought similar battles. Evelyn sat in a tailored suit, her smirk unshaken. I wore a clean flannel and boots. Tom wheeled in a crate of evidence titles from 1982, satellite photos of my cabin predating Pine Valley's existence, the conservation easement. Their lawyer opened with a theatrical plea about community standards and how my lifestyle clashed with Pine Valley's vision. I stood, voice steady. "Your Honor, when did aesthetics trump deeds?" Tom laid out our case, piece by damning piece. The leaked document sealed it, exposing the HOA's fraud. The judge's ruling was swift. My land was mine, untouchable by Pine Valley's overreach. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Evelyn's smirk vanished. Back at my homestead, the solar panels hummed under a clear sky. I'd won more than a lawsuit. I'd won the right to say no, to live free, to defy a world that demands conformity. But the victory felt bittersweet. How many others, without a Tom or a paper trail, had been steamrolled by the same machine? As I sipped coffee on my porch, I knew this fight wasn't just mine. It was a warning. When power comes knocking, truth and defiance are your only weapons.